Microphone's off.
Turn your mic on.
Oh, there we go. Hi. Thank you. I'm Vice Chair Annette Scipio of this committee, and our noble chairman is joining us remotely, Mayor Pro Tem Dee Dee Adams. As you know, we have two parts of our agenda: the consent agenda that will be voted on unanimously unless someone has one that they would like to pull, and we would take it separately. And then we'll also have the general assent agenda. Are there any consent items anyone would like pulled?
I want to make a point on C2.
No points. No points.
Okay, no points.
Would you like C2 pulled?
Yeah, go ahead and pull it, just I want
Okay.
people to know about it.
I'll move the balance of the approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. This consent agenda has been moved and properly second. All in favor of, and this must be a voice vote. Let's hear your voices.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem is not,
I read her lips.
is not audible.
Yes, she is.
I heard
Say
it.
it again, MPK.
Yeah, we got you.
I think there's a delay.
It's delayed, okay. So the consent agenda items C1 and C3 have passed. Now, Madam Clerk, would you do C2?
Item C2, consideration of items related to acceptance of state fiscal recovery funds to provide homelessness prevention services. Resolution authorizing acceptance of the state fiscal recovery funds to provide homelessness prevention services and execution of agreements, $165,123.
Good evening.
Good afternoon, good evening. I don't think I need a presentation, but I just want to point out to some of our homeless advocates who are continuously pressing us to provide resources that this is a resource that is dedicated to preventing homelessness. And I think the way I've read it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it would eliminate evictions, not eliminate, but it would address people who are being evicted or going under that legal process to help them avoid being evicted. Is that correct?
That is correct. Good evening, committee members, Chair Mayor Pro Tem Adams, Assistant Chair Annette Scipio, and council members. Chantel McClam, Neighborhood Services Director. This item will give us the funding to be able to have in-house some eviction prevention services. And so we will be doing that ourselves. We had an agency that was doing it, but they will no longer be able, they no longer have the capacity to do it. And so we want to bring this in-house to be able to do this for those who are looking at becoming homeless.
Thank you. I think it's a great resource for them.
Well, that's a little different than what I thought. So does that mean that residents who may be in crisis would be coming here or to Bryce Stewart, to your department, to apply?
They would be coming to us to apply. If they are looking for rental assistance of some type, utility assistance of some type, we will be going through the process of ensuring that they are eligible for this funding.
And how will the public know that this exists? Since it's a change in how we've used these funds.
It is a change in how we use them. I'm not sure how we typically put that out there. I'm going to have our program manager. Go ahead.
Sharika Floyd, Housing Programs Manager, Neighborhood Services. So we will use our coordinated entry system that is already in place. So it's a 211 and a coordinated intake line that you call when you are in need of housing services. These funds are prioritized for individuals and households going through Child Protective Services and Department of Social Services. So we are connected with the county, who will send over referrals, intake packets to our CES system. Our CES system will then refer those eligible applicants to Neighborhood Services, and we will work to get the applicants completed and the payments processed.
Great. So we really won't need to promote it because people are coming through referral only for this assistance.
Yes, the majority of the money is prioritized for Child Protective Services and anyone that's in the Department of Social Services system, so Medicaid, Medicare, food stamps, those type of households.
Do we see this as a full-time effort for one staff person?
So we are utilizing 3 separate staff member in neighborhood services as well as interns.
Oh, interns as well?
Yes.
Are there any other questions about this?
I would move to approve item C2.
Second.
All in favor, say
Aye.
aye. And that motion carries. Now we'll go to our general agenda. Madam Clerk, let's have the G1, please.
Item G1, ordinance designating certain property as a local historic landmark. The Peter Fetter House, located in the South Ward. Public hearing is set for January 8th, 2024.
Ms. McCullough?
Hi, Madam Chair, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. I'm here, usually at this meeting, we set the public hearing date. So that's what I need you to approve at this meeting, and then we can do the full-blown, or I can go through this very quickly and then, give you more information if you have any questions at this time. But this is a local historic landmark application. The recommendation from the Historic Resource Commission was not to designate it. So that's what we have with this case, the Peter Fetter House, which is in Old Salem.
With that, could you just give us a quick overview of that?
Should I not have said that? So the application was made. It was a very well thought out application. However, the Peter Fetter House was built in the 1840s. And in the 1920s, it was converted from a single family house to a duplex. So many of the original features were taken off. So that could be made into that duplex. The period of significance for Old Salem is 1754 to 1856. And so for several reasons, the commission felt that this did not meet the special local significance criteria that it's required to meet, because the case was being made that it was an example of a 1920s duplex. Well, in the 1920s, that was when Winston-Salem was really booming. Duplexes, quadruplexes, conversions from house to very different multifamilies was happening everywhere. And the commission felt that there was not enough information or support in the application to prove that this was one of the most special and significant ones. And it had also lost its special significance for that 1840 construction because the features had been lost. There are still some, but not enough to designate it as a local landmark. It also seems to go against what the landmark program and Old Salem's missions are, is to keep it within that period of significance. It wasn't reconstructed, and unfortunately, it's one of the last ones that's kind of in that situation. So,
Mr. Clark?
Given that your committee is recommending we do not do it, I don't know why we would have a public hearing. I'm not going to vote to have a public hearing because I'm not going.
I think under the law, it still has to go through the process of having a public hearing and for council to vote it down, essentially, if that's what council wants to do.
in our ordinance, that's the way we have established it, and because we're a certified local government, you are actually that certified local government in this case, so not the commission. They are just a recommendation body.
So we're not voting to decline, we're just voting to move it forward to the public hearing.
Tonight, yes, today, yes.
And that public hearing would be set for
January 8th, is that what you, January 8th?
January 8th, okay?
Would you like a motion?
Yes, we'd like to have a
I'll make a motion that we move this forward without recommendation to the January 8th for the public hearing.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. So that motion has passed, and we will have that public hearing as designated. Madam Clerk, G2, please.
Item G2, resolution authorizing the conveyance of certain city-owned property in support of the city's affordable housing objectives located in the Northwest Ward.
Attorney Carmen.
I'll be happy to handle this item. Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, Vice Chair Scipio, committee members, and council members. As you all may recall, the city purchased 800 Spring Street from ESR on November 17th of this year. It was a short, quick sale. The city now has a buyer who is interested in buying the property from the city. The city paid $760,000 for the property. The buyer is willing to buy the property for $600,000 and adhere to the city's affordable housing ordinance as well as the Housing Justice Act. And essentially what that requires is that the property remain affordable for 30 years. Since it's a multifamily 8-unit apartment building, it would have to remain affordable for 30 years. The current leases run through 2024, and the buyer has indicated that he's willing to honor those leases. And after they expire, working with Halls and others to see if the tenants will qualify for vouchers and other assistance to make the units continue to be affordable for the current tenants. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Is that a one-year lease?
The leases right now, I think some of them expire in March, and the last one may be September. So he has to honor the current leases just as the city does.
Are there any other concerns?
And the buyer's here if there
Mayor
are
Pro-
questions.
okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, City Attorney, refresh us again on what happens if the city doesn't do this, if we don't authorize the conveyance. Basically, we need to let the public know that if we don't do this, these houses, these units could go to market rate. And the people that are living in them now could possibly be evicted once their leases expire. So this is a way of the city trying to assist and decease of this possibly happening. Could you elaborate a little bit on that, Attorney Carmen?
Sure, I'll be happy to. As you may recall, prior to the purchase of the property by the city, ESR put the property on the market and received a number of offers to purchase the property. The city decided to step in and buy the property for affordable housing purposes to keep the units affordable as opposed to letting the market purchase the property or a private property owner, a buyer, purchase the property and then turn the units into market rate units. So the city purchased the property to basically protect the tenants that are currently there and to continue the property as affordable housing. And so now what the city wants to do, instead of holding on to the property for years, is to ensure that the property is purchased by a buyer who will basically carry out the desire of the city, which is that the property remain affordable. In this case, because of the affordable housing ordinance requires 30 years, the buyer will have to agree to affordability period of 30 years. And also under the session law that you all obtained in 2021, you can directly sell it to a buyer who's willing to meet the conditions of the ordinance and basically keep the property affordable for 30 years. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Attorney Carmen, I had a question. Would it have been appropriate for the city to release a request for proposals for other persons who might be willing to keep the property affordable? And if it wasn't appropriate, why is it not appropriate?
It's appropriate for the city to sell the property directly to a buyer. The city also has the option, if it so chooses, to put it out through the upset bid process or through an RFP process. Again, as you may recall, the city obtained legislation in 2021 specifically for affordable housing that allows the city, pursuant to the ordinance that was adopted, to sell directly to a potential buyer or developer, or you could go through the upset bid process or put out a request for proposals. Either one of those is appropriate. And as you may recall, the city has used the session law about 5 times thus far.
Okay. Mr. Mundy?
Oh, yes, I had to remember where I was going with this. The difference in the sales price and what we paid for it is in fact considered our funding for affordability.
Yes, that is in essence the consideration for the affordability period for 30 years. It's basically $20,000 a door.
Thank you.
Councilmember Burke?
Thank you, Chair Scipio. Actually, you asked one of the questions, and you just answered that, Attorney Carmen, about the option to put it out as a RFP for anyone and apply the affordable housing ordinance. You answered that. So my next question is, did we give consideration to, after purchasing the property, maybe selling the property to one of the agencies we work so closely with? And when I say agency, I'm talking about a nonprofit agency like City with Dwellings, Salvation Army, Bethesda Center, one of those nonprofit entities, so that we can ensure the housing affordability going forward.
I'll be happy to answer that. Basically, we had a willing buyer who was willing to come forward and agree to the affordability restrictions and the Housing Justice Act. So as we've done before, when we have a buyer or developer willing to agree to that, and they seem to have the resources to be able to do the project, we move forward with that recommendation. And I think Councilmember McIntosh may have wanted to add a little bit to that as well.
Well, the purchaser is here with us if we have any questions for him directly, but we would not have the option of guaranteeing the affordability of this property for 30 years had we not been brought the opportunity to purchase this. If it had not come to our attention by the person that we're attempting to sell it to, this would have already been sold, probably closed. Cash offers were all over the place. This would have been lost to affordability had our potential buyer not brought it to our attention. We have the legal ability to do it this way. I think we also have the moral ability, the need to do it this way. We need to partner with anybody in the community that we can that is qualified and willing to do business with us and keep put the kind of restrictions on it that we want. Not every developer is going to do this. This is kind of a specialty, and I think we need to be open to whoever is meeting our needs and hitting the points that we want to hit, that we need to avail ourselves of that opportunity.
Okay, Mr. Mundy?
I think someone can confirm this, that the current tenants have been advised of what's going on so that they're not in the dark on this. Is that correct?
That is correct. Staff with Neighborhood Services, in fact, the director, Chantel McLean, actually went out and had conversations with the tenants, so they have been advised. They've also been interacting with the management team that we have on board for right now.
Thank you.
Ms. Burke?
I just wanted to ask some more questions. The current residents, what rent amounts are they paying?
I have to look it up. I think it's anywhere from $520 to $600 roughly.
And if we make this, if it falls within the affordability policy, affordability can be as much as how much?
It can go up to no more than 80%, but I think the developer, and this is going to be part of the agreement, has agreed to keep it at a lower rate than that. And he's here, the buyer, potential buyer, developer, if you want to ask questions about that.
Okay, I would like to.
You would like to ask questions of the buyer, of the potential buyer?
Yes.
Okay, can we have the potential buyer? Please state your name and give us your address.
Jared Rogers, 166 Lynbrook Drive, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 27106.
And your question?
Yes, same question. If the rents that the current residents are paying right now range between, I think you said $520 to $565?
$520 to about $600.
To about $600. So what can they expect? Some of the leases we just heard will expire March 2024. That's just, what, a few months away. What can they expect as far as the highest amount or the beginning amount for affordability?
So in our letter of intent, we agreed to hold rents through 2024. So even if their lease rolls in March, they can stay month to month through 2024 with no change in rent structure. In those 12 months, we hope that Section 8 opens their rolls where we can move them onto Section 8. So in history, I got involved in this project as a board member for City of Dwellings. We looked at it for our Housing First initiative, but it's two-bedroom, one-bath units. It's not the first need that we're trying to satisfy at City of Dwellings. I see it as a future need 3-5 years down the road. So I've found some investors who are willing to basically hold it until it becomes a need for City of Dwellings.
Okay, so if we're going to hold the rents for 12 months, right where they are, after 12 months, you're thinking that maybe some of the residents or all of the residents might qualify with halls. Is that what I heard?
Correct. There's 2 today, and there's one that actually City of Dwellings placed who should be eligible also. We don't know about the other 5. One person has been acting as the property manager for free, so she's been living for free. So she's the one we're not going to immediately jump her, but she's probably the one we need to figure out where her place would be first. My concern with just going to 80% AMI is that's above market today. So you can do $1,000 rent for a family of 2 in that unit, and that's $1,000. So this would still sell to a market rate person because they have room to go to $1,000 all the way to $1,300 if it's a 4-person family.
So possibly some of the residents living there, possibly after 12 months, might not be able to afford to live there.
If they can't, it'd be surprising to me because they'd either qualify to pay more or they'd qualify for a voucher.
Okay, but there are no guarantees.
And my thing is, we have 16,000 units short and affordable. The fastest way to solve that is to create more Section 8 housing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions to the potential buyer? Madam Attorney, could you explain the upset bid process? Thank you so much.
Yes, if council decides on January 8th, when this moves forward on a committee, that it wants to subject this sale to the upset bid process, essentially, it would be put out through notice through the upset bid process, and anybody who wants to place a bid on the property would have to do so within a 10-day time period and upset the price, the $600,000 by 5%. And it will continue to go through that process until there are no longer any bidders. Now, if no one responds, then it will be sold basically to the current proposed buyer.
And that upset bid process would include all of our housing restrictions that we want to
It
have.
would require compliance with the Affordable Housing Ordinance as well as the Housing Justice Act.
Good. Thank you. Madam Pro Tem, is your hand up? No. Okay, you look like it. Kevin?
I've got a question also. If we did the upset bid process, do we face the risk that the current buyer might not follow through if those capital resources were used somewhere else? Is there anything that would legally bind the current buyer to us if we use the upset bid process? I just don't want to lose out on this opportunity to make affordable housing.
Well, there's always the potential that you could lose the current buyer, if that's what your concern is.
There's no legal, he's not legally bound to us.
Not at this point, no.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Oh, Kevin?
I'm Jeff.
Jeff?
Yeah.
Jeff?
I get them confused.
I guess I'd just like to hear somebody's opinion of what would be a better offer. What would be more in line with our wishes as a council that we've stated than what we have on the table now?
I personally think the only thing the upset bid process would bring would possibly be more money to the city, because that's what it's going to increase that. And you'll see if there are other people interested in going along with our new restrictions for housing. I just think that's something we need to understand. How big is the market for that? Mr. Clark?
Yeah, I think we need to listen to what this gentleman said. He says with affordable housing, he could charge $1,000 or $1,300 as a family of 4. I fear sure if you had upset bids, you might get a better bid, but it certainly wouldn't be good for the tenants.
Correct.
And and he's willing to work with them to get Section 8, et cetera. So folks were leaving out two folks. One is ESR, who needed to sell this quickly for financial reasons. And we were, I think, the only party that could do it that quick. I know we were. The other one are the tenants. That if we were to put this thing on the market for bids, apparently the 80% of medium income is close to what the market is for these things. We may well get more money, but we're forgetting that people that live there are probably going to get moved out. I will say, in retrospect, if it wasn't for the fact that ESR needed money quickly, I would not have even been involved in this deal. They could have sold it for more money, but they couldn't have sold it quickly, because whoever else would have bought it would have had to gone through due diligence and get financing and everything else. So, Madam Chair, I would suggest, I would like to make a motion to move this forward without recommendation and let us decide what we want to do in January.
Second.
Second from Dee Dee.
Okay, great. So we've heard a motion, and it's been approved and second. May we have a vote on that by voice?
For discussion.
Do you want to discuss some more?
I just wanted to say one
Well,
thing.
go ahead, discuss some more.
Finish discussing, but go
I
ahead.
didn't realize until today that the buyer was a member of the board for City with Dwellings. And I want to point out the City with Dwellings is one of our important partners in our continuum of care. So we are, in fact, keeping this in the family, so to speak. So that's all I wanted to say. So I vote.
All right.
And
thank
can I
you.
make one point before you vote, too? The other thing, I think the question may have been about the highest that could be charged. And so while it is at the 80%, keep in mind that the structure of the ordinance focuses on below 80% as well, 30, 50%, and 80% of the area median income.
But no one would be bound to that. They could charge less than that, but another buyer would not be bound to set rents at 60% or lower.
Anybody?
Right.
Okay.
Ms. Burke?
Well, I'm sorry, I've become confused again.
Okay.
Another buyer, any buyer, would have to follow the Affordable Housing Justice Act. Am I correct?
They would have to follow the Affordable Housing Ordinance and the Housing Justice Act. But I think what I believe Councilmember McIntosh was getting at is that this buyer is willing to do a little bit more than just that.
But we don't know what that means, a little bit more. We need numbers.
I understand.
Okay.
We have a motion that's been appropriately second. Let's have a voice vote on that, please. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we'll move this forward with no recommendation. Thank you. Now we'll go to G3, Mr. Royston.
Item G3, update on Winston Lake Golf Course improvements located in the East Ward.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, Vice Chair Scipio, members of the committee, members of City Council.
Good afternoon.
As you all may be aware, we were in receipt of a little over $1.7 million of new money to make improvements at Winston Lake Golf Course. Over the years, there have been a number of issues regarding the greens, drainage. We have some vegetation and tree issues, fairway issues. We hired a consultant. And as we felt that it was important to keep City Council abreast of each step as we move through this process and begin to work on some of the improvements at Winston Lake Golf Course. So this informational item will bring this committee up to speed on where we are currently with the improvements at Winston Lake Golf Course. When we initially began looking at the scope for Winston Lake Golf Course, we knew that there were several issues that needed to be addressed that we inquired about when we hired the consultant. That included tree inventory removal, tee box renovations and placement, improved drainage, irrigation system improvements, bunker renovations, and possibly removal, and fairway and greens improvements and renovations. The city selected, Richard Mandel, golf course architecture, who's an award-winning golf course architect. He also did a lot of the work and planning and study and master planning for the courses over at Tanglewood. We hired him to kind of come in and do a basic inventory and analysis of the Winston Lake Golf Course to go through and look at those items that were on the previous slide. And one of the things that we found throughout that process is that we had a very common denominator that was causing the number of the issues that we have there at Winston Lake Golf Course, which are the trees. The trees are causing so many different types of issues out there that we feel that this is going to be a good place to start with as part of phase one. And I would like to kind of go through and share some of our findings with you and then accept questions at the conclusion. Excessive tree cover drastically reduces the amount of sunlight that is needed to maintain a healthy golf course. It also creates issues with air circulation around the greens, poor drainage where it's difficult to grow grass throughout the golf course, and increases the frequency of disease related to greens, tee boxes, and fairways. The abundance of trees also makes it increasingly difficult to maintain the infrastructure at Winston Lake Golf Course. Just a few years ago, with funding from the 2018 GEO bonds, we went through and made a number of improvements with our irrigation system and had to make many repairs to that irrigation system due to a lot of tree roots encroaching on those areas. Additionally, trees absorb the sunlight, water, and other nutrients that are needed for proper turf management and healthy turf there at the golf course. The tree cover in Winston Lake Golf Course is also creating drainage issues where growing grass is becoming increasingly difficult. In addition to shade, the grass in shady spots stay wet longer and are more susceptible to fungus and other diseases. The abundance of these wet and shaded areas will also invite weeds and other unwanted vegetation that typically thrive in these wetter environments. That makes it harder to remove. The overall the excessive amount of tree cover in Winston Lake Golf Course is also causing several areas and several issues with our greens. Just this year, we spent over $20,000 replacing some of the greens and some patches of greens there. Golfers and maintenance staff typically see unhealthy spots. They simply show up because there isn't enough light. In some cases, pruning or trimming trees can be sufficient, but with the state of the Winston Lake Golf Course, we're a little bit beyond that point, and we'll be looking at doing some massive tree removal and also some selective tree removal in areas to get the golf course as healthy as we need it to be for years to come. But also, in addition to that, the tree cover also reduces and it drastically limits the amount of circulation and air that can come through and properly ventilate the greens in other areas of the golf course where it's desperately needed. When the moisture accumulates on the blades, it elevates the surrounding humidity and creates a favorable setting for disease to set in on the grasses, which makes it difficult for us to maintain. And working with Richard Mandel, we performed several rides, not only with city staff, but we also took members of the public out along the golf course. And he has developed a tree removal plan. And I wanted to kind of show you the overall plan. We did an overlay here on top of an area image to kind of give you a better understanding of where the hole placements are. But you can see, according to this diagram and according to our first round, that we're looking to remove about close to 50 acres of tree clearing, and then with the selective clearing areas, close to 100 trees to be removed, 98 exactly. We rode around with Richard Mandel, and there were so many trees that needed to be removed. We almost marked the trees that we wanted to keep, but the trees are creating so many issues. They've erased sight lines that once existed there at Winston Lake Golf Course. And so the tree removal is what we're feeling is the first stage that needs to happen before we can move forward with any other plans. And I did an enlargement of an area so that you can see a little bit more in detail the type of work and what this plan represents. They show several areas like I think there's BO, there's about 2.2 acres of mass clearing in there, but out of that particular area, there are about 7 specimen trees that we will keep to help clearly line up where those fairways and where the inbounds and out of bound areas are on this particular hole. we feel that everything else that needs to happen at Winston Lake Golf Course is really dependent on removing the trees that impact the overall health of the golf course. We currently have about a little over $1.65 million allocated currently with this project for tree removal. I do not have an estimate on what that bid will come in, where that bid will come in. However, we do feel confident, and we've shared this information with the public, that we can't really move forward with any other plans until we get inside that golf course and begin doing some selective tree removal. At this time, I'll take this time to answer any questions you may have.
Well, I have a big issue. I love trees. Everybody loves trees. When you go to Winston Lake Golf Course, one of the challenges are the trees. However, when I ride around the golf course and I think about what that course looked like in its original design, when you look, you know those trees have grown tremendously, those original trees, but there are so many saplings that have come up that weren't there originally. So we really need to get back to a golf course that's healthy. I love trees more than you can imagine. But I do have a question for Ms. McCullough. If you could come, because this is a question I think it's important for us to understand. As you know, we are on the list to get approved on the National Register of Historic Places. And the thing about the course that makes it historic is that it is a course that had those trees. In removing the trees, and we won't be removing so many that it's almost those that weren't there 67 years ago. Would that impact our National Register standing going forward if we were to get it?
So the National Register is an honorific designation. So unlike what we just talked about with the landmarking that has some review, the National Register is not like that, only if there's federal funds involved in some sort of project. So actually removing trees that weren't there originally, saplings that are grown, would take it back to more. So they actually would look at that in favor, and it wouldn't be a detriment. So no, it won't hurt, or they won't take away that designation because of the tree removal.
Because we're not actually changing the course. We're just making it more playable, but making it healthier because we're eliminating all of the growth that's come over the years that hadn't been taken care of. So
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you. Just wanted to make sure we understood the historic impact. Mr. Monday, and then Mr. Clark.
Thank you for the explanation. From a timing perspective, it sounds like the big money might be leaving the budget in the next fiscal year. Is that right?
Yes, Councilman Money. Our plan, we're about 85, 90% complete with the RFP. We're working with our purchasing department to get that completed. Our goal would have that out on the street first of the calendar year, looking to start work sometime early spring.
So we would have time to consider that in our next budget. And you would know what those expenses are at that point in time.
The money would be, let me clarify, in January of 2024 is when we're looking to have the bid on the street. We're looking to start the work sometime in the early spring and also 2024. That's money that we currently have now to spend.
Thank you. I had forgotten that point.
Yeah.
Mr. Clark?
Does it include stump removal, and are you going to replant with rough grass?
Yes, yes, and yes. The plan would be to remove all of the tree stumps. We can't leave the stumps in place. They'll begin to rot, and it will create issues for us down the road. We need to get in there and do this and do it right. And so it includes stump removal, even existing stumps where trees have been cut. All of those old stumps will be coming out.
Okay. And you go plant grass?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we will go back with a type of, with grass, but it will be built based on the recommendation from Richard Mendo.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Mr. McIntosh?
Our golf courses operate at a deficit, don't they? Runs Park and Winston.
Winston Lake, to some degree. I'm not entirely sure about Reynolds Park. I think they're doing pretty well there.
Okay. What I'm sensing here is this is an attempt to get more people to play golf at Winston Lake because the conditions are improved. So we're trying to move towards not just a better facility for everybody, but a lesser drain on our budget in the process, correct?
Yes, like a lot of the work we've done over the years, over the past 10, 15 years at Winston Lake Golf Course has been to correct symptoms that have been caused by the trees. Right. This will also protect a lot of the work and a lot of the investment that we've already done there. Spent a lot of money replacing the cart paths. We don't want the tree roots to encroach on that and tear those up. We just renovated the irrigation system. We don't want those tree roots getting in there and tearing that up. And so this is going to protect a lot of the money a lot of the things that we were able to complete by investing some money in the course, but also provide a path for us and a plan to move forward so that we don't get back to this point again in another 30 years.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Royston and Council Committee. Yeah, I've been working on this probably, 14 years now? 14 years. And we get a little bit done, whether it's the bridges replaced, the stairs, the cart path, when we had to shut the course down. COVID came and our numbers increased significantly because golf was the only sport, the thing you could do during COVID at the beginning. So we saw new customers and citizens out playing Winston Lake. I think one of the things I'm very happy about this, I have two questions. Are we planning on, before this starts, having a community, the golfers at Winston Lake, to have hopefully the consultant or staff explain to the golfers what is getting ready to happen? Because when we do this, and I know over 14 years, I get a lot of calls when we have to shut things down at Winston Lake. Community meeting or that they can come in and actually hear what the plan is versus golfers speculating what they think is happening. Second, I'd like to know, or I hope, that we also, outside of the scope of work when it starts, that is there going to be a maintenance plan in place to ensure that we preserve and prevent and correct issues immediately, such as an audit to know that something is happening on hole number 8 or whatever, and that we know it quickly versus months down the road or years that now we find out about it.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, Madam. The answer to both of your questions is yes. The first one, we did schedule a ride along with members of the Winston Lake Golf Course. We rented some golf carts, the limo style type golf course, and drove them around the course, and it kind of went through the whole process of why we feel this is the best way to move forward. There were a lot of questions, and we did meet some people who were kind of frustrated with the fact that we may have to close the golf course again or portions of it to do this thing right. But Richard Mandel explained that process to them very thoroughly. I believe at the conclusion of that ride along, there was a better understanding about why we're doing the things that we're doing. Just last week, there was a community meeting. I believe last Thursday, there was a community meeting to kind of go over and invite the public to kind of come in and kind of hear the plans about how we're going to move forward. Public involvement, especially at this location, is imperative to us. It's very, very important. We manage that golf course, but it's really for the people. And so making sure that the public understands why we're doing the things that we're doing helps us in the long run. We also, at the conclusion of this, will have a maintenance plan. I guess I would call it a list of best practices and a new way of managing the golf course. It's going to be a challenge for years to come, but we will have a maintenance plan, things that need to be done annually, and depending on what season, there's some things that Patrick and his team would do during the cooler months versus things that we'll be focusing on in the warmer months. But at the end of the day, we feel that completing this tree removal is going to help jumpstart a lot of the work that's needed to get this golf course really back to the glory that it deserves.
I do believe, Mr. Royston, again, being a golfer, that it would be very helpful if you guys could create some storyboards or something that communicates to golfers what is going to happen. The people that you rode around the course, I got, people like me, I don't need to ride the course. But the golfers that come in off the street and they don't know what's going on, I think it's very important that we have storyboard or communication for them to read what's going on so they don't feel like, I drove all this way, I didn't know, or even if we put it on our social media or marketing sites with dates, because I have been at the golf course when golfers come in from other counties and cities, even when we shut it down, they didn't know until they got there that we only had 9 holes. Right. But if we can go ahead and start preparing them before it happens with a timeline so that I don't plan my family reunion around my family and I playing golf when the course is going to be basically maybe half up, half down, that we can make our plans accordingly. And I think that fulfills the promise of customer service. Don't you think?
Yes, we can definitely do that and make that happen. It shouldn't be any problem to have storyboards so they're to better communicate the timeline and what's to be expected.
Mr. Roston, I think part of the issue is that Mr. Mandel's report, his complete report will not be completed until when?
It could take, I don't have an answer to that question, Councilmember Scipio. It anywhere between 6 to 9 months, 10 months, even longer. However long it takes for him to provide the information that we've hired him to do. I can't put a timeline on that. I don't have a date, but once we do get an idea and an understanding of when that's going to be expected, I can make sure I share that with you.
I know that there's a much more thorough report that's being prepared around what needs to happen at Winston Lake to make it viable for the next 50-something years. We haven't had a real detailed report, but I do know that the phase 1 is this tree removal. And as I rode through and talked with him, I understood why the necessity is to remove so many of the trees that have grown and the underbrush there, and how it does impact the growth of the good trees. The healthy trees aren't all as healthy as they can be because of the saplings. So I think it's important that people know that there is a bigger report that is coming. But good signage at the course saying why the tree removal is happening, is underway for a better look. I think that's what people love to know, what's going on. They don't know why we're doing stuff, and oftentimes they don't know that we are doing things. So I think it's important that we make sure there's good signage in advance of the removal of the trees, and it is, correct me if I'm wrong, because we already have the money, the next time the council will need to input is actually to approve the contract for the tree removal.
Yes.
That from the RFPs. So you'll be seeing that coming again, hopefully in January. But it is a long process getting that course in good shape. And part of it is seasonal also. So there are some things you can't do in the winter and some things you can't do until the summer. So we'll be seeing this again. But Mr. Royston wanted to just have everybody's know that this is happening, and you'll be seeing the contract approval requests coming in, I believe, January or February.
Yes, you're correct, Councilmember Scipio.
Thank you so much, Mr. Royston.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Any other comments for today's agenda? With that, I'm going to comment. Happy holidays.
Yes.
And Merry Christmas.
Happy Kwanzaa.
Happy Kwanzaa. And they're having a menorah lighting, I think, today.
Is it that?
I thought it was today in Bailey Park. But everyone have a wonderful holiday. Be good, eat well, and come back ready to work. I hear Robert Clark, Councilmember Clark's going to be a new recruit for the police department in the new year. But have a good time, and we are adjourned.
I'll be naughty.
Happy holidays.
Ooh.